Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to today's webinar on the new SunSpec Alliance AI Tool. I'm Sam Reid. I'm the VP of Content and Operations here at SunSpec, and I'm really looking forward to walking you through this live demo on our new tool. But first, we're just going to do a quick housekeeping here and just go through our admonition agreement. So I'm just going to go through this quickly. All SunSpec meetings are conducted in accordance with the SunSpec antitrust policy and intellectual property provisions defined in the SunSpec member agreement. This can be found at our website, sunspec.org. SunSpec strictly prohibits market participants and their employees who take part in these activities from using their participation as a forum for engaging in practices or communications that violate antitrust laws. Confidential or proprietary information should not be discussed in open session. Please contact SunSpec management if you have any questions. I do want to say before we get started as well, this will be an interactive session as we get going. So I would like you, if you have questions during the duration of this webinar for the AI tool, to go ahead and raise your hand. You can ask the questions orally, or you can put them in the chat and we'll put them in the AI tool. And again, if you have questions at any time during the presentation, feel free to raise your hand or put them in the chat. So give me 1 second here and we will get started. So to give you a little overview of the SunSpec Alliance AI tool, we had developed one last year, initially as a pilot program, and had some pretty good success with it. However, what we really wanted to do was develop a tool that was far more technical and granular for our member base. This is because while we're a small nonprofit trade alliance and we're readily able to answer a lot of your technical questions, we have members all over the world. And so we wanted to have a 24/7 customer support tool that allows people to get very high level or very technical level answers from SunSpec specifications. Now, as you know, SunSpec specifications can be very dense and long. And so we wanted to give you a streamlined process rather than having to dig through the specifications, being able to ask this tool any sort of question related to SunSpec, and not only get a highly accurate answer, but have you pointed out exactly where in the specifications you can find that answer. So one of the cool things you'll see as we start to go through this is that it's not only going to answer your question, it's going to point you specifically where in the SunSpec specifications to find that answer as a reference point, often just linking you to our specification page or providing you with that document to download right there readily at hand. So we'll get into a little more of that in a second here, but first I wanted to demo for you kind of just how to log into the tool. Now, I will say this is a member-only benefit for SunSpec Alliance members. However, those who participate in the webinar today, you will get a week free trial to take this back to you and your team and use it as much as you'd like to see what sort of benefit that could provide to you. But moving into the demo, let's take a look at how the tool works. So when you come to the SunSpec Alliance homepage, this is what it'll look like. You'll go up here to your member login. Now, I've already got my information populated. You'll put it in here and you'll go ahead and log in. Now it'll take you here to our member portal. And what you're going to see here is it's going to pop up this AI support right here. Now this is going to stay with you anywhere you navigate on the SunSpec page. So it may disappear for a second, but it'll be right back and it will still have your previous chat. Now, I don't have any of my previous chats in here, obviously, for the sake of the demo. But as you'll see, once you start asking it questions and then you come back to it, it's going to have all of those questions saved. It's also going to have a spot for you to put in your name and email, which allows us then to go in on the back end, see all of the questions that you've been asking, and see if we need to follow up with you with one of our engineers. So it provides this extra layer of customer support where we can see what you're asking and follow up with you immediately if you needed any other additional information. However, you don't have to do that as well, and you can remain anonymous and just ask the tool questions as you like. So as you'll see, it'll pop up from any page. It'll come right back. And there it is. So what I've done to start out with is I've created some sample questions around a wide array of different topics and things that people would most likely ask the tool, to kind of give you some examples. But as we go through this as well, feel free to posit some questions or come off mute and ask some questions for the tool as well. Now, to give a little background on the tool, like I said before, we built one that wasn't quite as in-depth as this. We built this in development with a group called SiteGPT, and what it allows us to do is on the back end of the AI tool, rather than just scraping information that's all publicly available from specific websites, I put some very strict parameters on this. Now it has all of the SunSpec specifications uploaded on the back end, which is how you're able to download some of these documents directly from the tool. And so it's pulling only from verified SunSpec information, from the specifications themselves, from our website, and from publicly available information from IEEE. So it's not pulling from all of these inordinate sources, and it's got pretty strict parameters on it. So if it doesn't know an answer, it's not going to hallucinate one. And if, well, as I'll show later, if you kind of have a misunderstanding of SunSpec standards or how different standards correlate to each other, it'll help clarify misunderstandings as well. So before I get going with some examples, does anyone have any questions? Okay, great. So we'll start with a question around specification navigation. And these are some questions that we've gone over with our engineering team that we think are pertinent to people who would be diving into SunSpec specifications. So the first question we're going to be asking is, which SunSpec models are required for a grid-tied inverter supporting advanced functions under IEEE 1547? We'll let the bot think for a second, and then you'll see the answer pop out shortly here. So it's going to give you a highly detailed response before we get back up to the top here. And then as you can see here, this is where you can put in your contact information and your email to continue the chat. It'll also provide up some relevant follow-up questions. But in looking at which SunSpec models are required for grid-tied inverters supporting advanced functions, you'll see the answer here. To support advanced functions for grid-tied inverters under 1547, SunSpec has defined a set of information models, often referred to as the 700 series DER models, right? So without reading every single answer here in full, you can see it'll start to give the list of the different SunSpec models that are in compliance. Now, what it's also going to do is give you the reference, right? You can find the full list of detailed descriptions of these models in the SunSpec information model. Includes approved 700 series models in the SunSpec 1547 specification profile implementation guide. Both documents are available here. So it points you right where to download those documents. It'll also give you some additional notes for context and provide up some follow-up if you need, the exact register maps or further implementation guidance. It'll point you to the other specification. Does anyone have any questions related to that or to this question specifically? And kind of continue on showing some examples. Okay, great. So I'm looking at a question sort of around cross-standard mapping, right? How do SunSpec models map to 2030.5 functions for DER communications? So we'll mix up the topic subject matter a little bit here. And you'll see it's going to give you a pretty detailed response. And again, depending on the type of question that you're asking, it'll often point you to the specific page, the table, as you can see here. Still going. So it'll point you, in looking at the SunSpec 1547 implementation guide, it'll tell you specifically which table it's referencing. Table 15, the surrounding section, pages 23 to 33. So if you're not fully confident in the answer that the AI tool is giving, it's giving you a reference of where exactly it's pulling the information from, which you can then quickly go verify yourself via our website. So you're going to see it's going to give you a total mapping overview of the functional alignment, model to function mapping. It's going to break down the different models, the function set, and the description functionality. And then it's going to give you that reference, where exactly to find it. So, this document's available here. Click that, and I'm only sharing my window right now, but that immediately just downloaded and opened up a PDF in my browser of that specific specification, and it tells you right where to go to find it. So again, it really streamlines and eliminates you needing to do that Control F in a particular document or really comb through to find where is this specific thing. You just ask this, and it'll tell you exactly where to find it. And you can ask it, where do I find in the specifications this particular X, Y, and Z, and it'll tell you exactly where as well. We've got some examples to go on that a little later. Does anyone at this time have any questions, anything that they'd like to see? Okay, great. We'll keep moving on and give an example. So now we'll move to one that's sort of a problem question. It's if somebody doesn't fully understand what they're asking or the interrelation between CSIP and Modbus, and we'll ask it something like this. How do I implement SunSpec Modbus for CSIP, right? Doesn't totally make sense, but we'll see how the tool addresses it. So it's going to say implementing SunSpec Modbus for CSIP involved understanding the relationship between the two. And so here's a detailed breakdown. So first, it's going to explain to the person, let's understand the relationship between SunSpec Modbus and CSIP, because there's obviously some sort of a misunderstanding there. So it breaks down what CSIP is, what SunSpec Modbus is, and then it explains how CSIP does not directly specify SunSpec Modbus. And so it'll go in, it'll, of course, it'll give you the reference document, tell you where to find the information, and then it'll show you, okay, if you're actually going to implement, it'll tell you, here's how you would implement SunSpec Modbus, and then how to ensure interoperability and certification and key documents and where to find them. So it helps then explain to the person that Modbus is implemented at the device level, CSIP is implemented at the utility gateway level. So it's going to provide that level of clarification and understanding that even if you don't quite understand what it is that you're asking, it's going to give you that historical background of both of the items and then sort of clarify and try to get at what you were asking better, albeit without hallucinating or giving you false information. So does anyone have any questions at this time, or should I keep going with some examples? Okay, so now we'll get to one a little more practical implementation question. If I want to implement a SunSpec Modbus server that can report measurement data and meter data, what models would I want to implement? And so it's going to run through the specifications, and it's going to give you a breakdown of those particular models, right? So it's going to give you the model, and it's going to immediately give you the reference. Table 17, page 24. You can download that document immediately, go down to page 17, or go to table 17, page 24, see the reference right there. It's going to give you an example for the models for the meter data, and then again, download the specific specification if you'd like to confirm, give you a brief little summary table here, and then again, just a reiteration of where to find those specifications. So rather than having to go through all the specs and see, oh gosh, what model am I supposed to do for this or that, you ask this, it immediately tells you model 701. And the same thing for metering data. At this point, does anyone have any questions? Dixon, I saw you came on camera. Did you have a question you wanted to ask? Okay, no worries. So now we can get something a little more technical and like a data model deep dive, right? So we're going to look at, ask the tool, can you break down how repeating blocks work within a SunSpec model and how they're implemented in practice? And I would like to reiterate that when you're a member and you're using this tool, you have, currently there's unlimited usage of this. So there's, no limit on the amount of questions that you can ask. And again, this is really meant to sort of help streamline your research process as you're doing this, especially if you're living in another time zone and you need a question right away and we're all asleep over here in California. This is a way that you can get, almost the same level of answer as one of our engineers along with the references. So it's a really detailed view for some of these questions that you may have. So, right, it's going to start out, it's going to give you what the concept of repeating blocks is. It's going to go into some key points about that. And again, there's your references with the document to download. It'll go into the implementation details, the model structure. It'll provide you an example. It'll go into the count register, the example from the specification that it's quoting directly. And again, these are all pulled directly from the SunSpec specifications on the back end, pulling directly from our PDFs, and it'll tell you exactly where it's pulling from. It'll give you Modbus register map examples. And then it'll also go over best practices, and then circle back to the references and where to find more information. It provides a summary table. And so you can see what we sought to do here is to, within these answers, give you some upfront context around what it is that you're asking, the detailed technical answers that immediately pull from the specifications, and then where to find those specifications if you'd like to reference them. So covering all three layers of your question, and again, giving you that level of confidence that you know the AI is not hallucinating it, it's not just pulling this from nowhere, it's telling you exactly what document and which area in that document it's pulling that information from, and at times even quoting directly from the documents, as we saw here. Does anyone have any questions at this time, or any questions they would like to ask the tool? Anything that has stumped you lately, or anything around SunSpec specifications that you haven't been able to find and ask? Feel free. If not, I'll keep going through with some examples. And again, feel free to step in at any time and ask. So now we're going to ask a question around some real-world troubleshooting. So if a device isn't being correctly recognized by a SunSpec client, what are the most common causes and how do you diagnose them? So it's going to go, if the device is not being correctly recognized, the issue is typically related to how the SunSpec Modbus map is implemented or exposed by the device. Here are the most common causes and diagnostic steps based strictly on SunSpec specifications. So this, again, this isn't the AI giving you its best guess. It's pulling only from what it knows based off of our SunSpec experts. So it'll go through some common causes. It could be an incorrect start address or missing SunSpec marker, and then gets into some of the technical reasons as to why or how that could be. A missing or incorrect end model, a model organization or length errors, an unsupported or unknown model ID, or an incorrect or incomplete model implementation, Modbus protocol issues, and then it gives you some diagnostic steps. So at least you have a baseline. You've already got 6 different things to troubleshoot and check right off the bat. That could be any one of these things that's causing that error. And then it goes into some diagnostic steps. So, this is, incredibly useful if something comes up quickly, you can't get a hold of someone, you want to diagnose this problem very quickly. You can come in and ask it, and it's going to give you 6 quick things to troubleshoot right off the bat, some diagnostics, and then it's going to reference where it's pulling it all from as well. And of course, you always have the option to reach out to support at SunSpec if it's something that you feel it didn't address properly. Now we'll get into like where, you want to see something, where can I find this specifically in the specifications? Where is this stuff referenced? So here's an example of where in the SunSpec specifications are the definition for inverter controls like volt, var, and frequency and watt, and how are those modeled, right? So we don't want to spend all the time combing through the specifications, looking for where specifically these definitions are. And so we're just going to ask the tool, and it's going to tell us right away. So the definitions for inverter controls such as volt, var, and frequency rod are obviously found in our specifications under the SunSpec DER information model specification, Modbus 1547, profile specification and implementation guide. So it's going to tell you where to find the definition right here, section 4.5, DER volt var model, model 705, starting on page 48. I mean, that saves you an inordinate amount of time of having to go through that, and it shows you right here where to download it from. And then it'll go into how it's actually modeled, right? Because that was the second part of our question. So it'll give you some example points. It'll go into the curves, the frequency watt control. It'll tell you right where to find the definition based off of these two guides, these two specifications here. And then it's going to go into how frequency watt is modeled. And it's going to give you some examples, some parameterized models, and then break down a nice summary table for you as well. Once again, it'll always at the end circle back to its references and tell you exactly where to download these forms here. So I know I've been pumping in a lot of questions here. Do we have any at the moment. Ray, it looks like, how smart is the model outside of looking at the specifications? Well, that was, you know, sort of the example that I gave for troubleshooting, right? It's going to pull from, you know, the available information that it has from the specifications and from our website. But we also, what we don't want it doing is giving advice beyond its expertise. And so you may find a limitation in that regard if it's beyond the parameters of the specifications, if it's beyond what is applicable to SunSpec standards. So Ray, if you had an example that you could, an example question that you want me to ask, I'm happy to try one. But we'll go into a couple more topic areas. You know, I know we've covered a lot, but let's ask it a question about cybersecurity. So this is a common one. What are the current recommendations for securing SunSpec Modbus communications, and where are these documented? And as most of you know, this is going to point you to our secure SunSpec Modbus specification, which has recently come out. And it's going to go through the exact security recommendations for securing SunSpec Modbus, which is all pulled again from our secure SunSpec Modbus specification. So it's going to go through, it's going to tell you where exactly. The Modbus specification, section 5.1, page 13, takes out any of the guesswork. You can go in and look at the document right there yourself. And it's going to go through exactly what you need to do to secure SunSpec Modbus. And again, point you where to find the documentation, provide a summary table so you can see, okay, I want to look at TLS encryption, that's 5.1, page 13, certificate management, that's 5.4, page 15. So it quickly aggregates for you all of the information that you need to find within the specification and tells you right where to find it, which is, again, really meant to sort of streamline your process when you're trying to aggregate this information.
Sam, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So I've been traveling around in Europe now, and I understand that SunSpec standards are being applied in places like Poland, and that jurisdictions like Germany are starting to use IEEE 23.5. So as the standard grows and expands, what are the plans for increasing the knowledge base or around these types of topics of use cases? Or does the standard or does the search tool already cover that?
No, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that because I actually forgot to cover some of that. And that is, this AI tool is continuously learning, as you'll see in the little prompt down here, which means that whenever we host a new webinar, that information from the webinar is being uploaded on the back end to the AI tool. So it's pulling from all of our decks, all of our webinars, all of the information on the SunSpec website, and of course, all of our specifications. And so as new specifications come out, those are continuously updated to the knowledge base. So this is a living AI. As this will adapt and evolve even throughout the course of this year. Every new webinar we put out, it's going to have updated information. Any new, you know, if we have SunSpec Modbus for Poland, that's going to be in there, exactly what you're talking about with Germany. So this tool will expand and the knowledge base will continually expand, which is why we like the way in which this tool is set up so much, because it's not stagnant. So 6 months from now, you're going to be able to ask it, you know, information that it might not be privy to now. That's, as Tom was just alluding to, as we get specifications mandated in Europe or adopted, those are going to be uploaded as well. So do know that the goal of this is to keep it as relevant and active as possible. And it is a living tool. So as new information, new blogs are posted to the website, it's aggregating all of that and continually updating its knowledge base, which is another thing that we like about the tool as well. Did that answer your question, Tom, or did you want to follow up?
No, thank you.
And Sam, Ray did put a question there in the chat. I suggest we could just, it's pretty broad, but I think it'll be a good demo. I suggest we just copy and paste that. And
okay, great. Yeah, Ray, thank you for that. So we'll let it answer here. It's acknowledging Ray, it is difficult, very complex. So it's going to give below a detailed technical overview. And as it always does, includes the references to the relevant SunSpec documents and guidance on certification and testing. So scheduling in 2030.5. Oh, I would also like to point out, one thing I forgot is that you can export any of these chats. So you can download any of these chats to a text file and keep them permanently. So if you're worried that your chat's going to go away, now I will say one functionality of this for members is if you hit this X here, it's going to clear out this current chat and start you a whole fresh one. So if you'd like to keep the chat going based off of what you were previously asking, just stay within this window. No, I take it back. If you hit this, it'll restart the chat. This will only minimize the chat here. No problems there. This just minimizes. However, if you hit this, it'll restart your chat. But as we talked about earlier, we scroll all the way up where you put in your name and email. Oh, now I'm not finding it. Right here, it will save your chat so that when you come back to it, you can easily access it again. But in looking at Ray's question, it's going to go into the scheduling of 2030.5's CSIP. It's going to explain you what the scheduling is, how the scheduling is modeled. It will give you some key resources for scheduling, and then it's going to give you, again, that reference, where it's pulling that from, pages 41 to 52. Now it's going to go over some of the implementation challenges. So time synchronization, resource discovery, event handling, priority resolution, edge cases, and you can see even here, devices must implement the CSIP defined priority rules for overlapping schedules, points you right where in the guide, section 6.2.5, page 47. So then it's going to go into the certification test requirements, and it's going to give you the reference for that as well, along with the pages, some example test cases, go into the test result reporting, and of course, always where to find the information from in the specifications. Now, Ray, do you feel like that got at what your question, or would you ask it some additional follow-ups to be more granular? I don't mean to put you on the spot, no worries if not, but okay, great. Glad to hear that. Did anyone else have any questions that they wanted to? Okay, cool. Thanks, Ray. Anyone else have any other questions that they wanted to ask before I go back to some additional samples? Okay, and again, you all will have, if you're not a member, you will have a week trial to this to use at your leisure and use as much as you want. So you will have the opportunity to test it for yourself. All right, let's get into another question sort of around a topic we see a lot. And that is, how does SunSpec support PKI for secure device authentication? And what are the implementation steps? So you can see we're asking this a wide array of different questions, right? From CSIP to Modbus to implementation to just basic, where do I find this in the specification, to how do I troubleshoot a problem? I mean, it's really pretty all-encompassing in terms of how it's able to aid you in relation to SunSpec. So it's going to tell you how it supports PKI, primarily through, obviously, our SunSpec certified PKI program. It's going to go into the PKI architecture and support, give you an overview of that. And again, the references, page number. It'll give you the implementation steps, right? Onboarding and certificate issuance. Tell you exactly what you need to do, tell you exactly how the process works. And again, pulling exactly from our specifications. It'll go into device implementation, how the certificate needs to be installed, TLS mutual authentication, certificate lifecycle management, and then it's going to go into the testing and certification. Of course, point you where to find the documentation and provide a summary table. So it's going to give you the full steps for a SunSpec PKI implementation. Exactly what you need to do and where you need to find it. All right, I'll kick it to one more technical question here. we're sort of rounding out so I don't just inundate you with too many questions. But what we'll ask it next is, and this is a little more on the technical side, can you compare the implementation differences between SunSpec, Modbus, TCP, and RTU in terms of performance, scaling, and deployment considerations? So this is going to be quite a long answer here. But you'll see right off the bat, it says implementation differences between the two are significant and have direct implications for performance, scalability, and deployment. And it's going to give you a detailed technical comparison referencing SunSpec and Modbus specifications where applicable. So it's going to give you a protocol overview, explaining the differences. It's going to go into the performance differences, the scaling, the deployment considerations for each type. And you can see it's getting, very technical in its recommendations here. It's going to give you SunSpec specific considerations. And then, as per usual, it's going to give you that summary table there at the end. So it's giving you highly detailed technical information, all from the specifications, on some pretty complex stuff. So this is where we're really hoping it adds that extra layer. You basically have a 24/7 SunSpec engineer that you can ask any question related to SunSpec on, and it's going to know the answer, and it's going to tell you where it's pulling it from. And I will say that we've ensured that this bot does not hallucinate answers. If it doesn't know the answer to a question, it will say that. It will say, I don't have enough information to answer the question because, and we'd much rather have you follow up with us and our support team rather than have the AI tool feel compelled to answer a question that it's not capable of and give you misinformation. And so that is an issue, obviously, as you may well know, with a lot of different AI tools. And that's one, when you're dealing in this realm, that you can't really have. We can't have an AI tool giving you misinformation around highly technical specifications. And so that's one thing that we're proud of, is that we haven't seen any sort of hallucinations or any issues with the model not pulling directly from SunSpec information. So that's one thing that we feel very confident about the accuracy of this tool. And as you can see from the examples that we've gone through, it consistently, operates in a similar format, right? It's going to give you an overview and an understanding of the question. It's going to get more detailed. It's going to give you a summary at the end, but most importantly, it's showing you where it's pulling all of that information from. Now, these are more technical. You'll see some other questions. It may be referencing specifically that it's pulling from, minute 25 and 36 from a webinar that we did, and it's quoting from a speaker in one of our webinars. So, when you're asking, really detailed stuff about specifications, it's going to be much more technical like this. If you're asking more generalized questions or more higher level questions or state of the market questions, insofar that it has enough information to answer, it's going to provide you with perhaps a different sort of references, like from our webinars or from a webinar deck or from blog posts that we've done. All right, Matthew, it looks like we have a question here. Okay, yes, so all of you will, you do need to be a member to access the tool. If you are a member, I went over this in the beginning, I'll just briefly go over it again. So here, I'll log out. So when you come to the SunSpec page as a member, you'll go to your member login. Mine's already pre-populated. You'll just log in here. Oops, I didn't verify I was a human. 1 second. And the tool will pop up in the bottom right corner here. You'll see it'll say click here for AI support. And we're right back. So you can see I logged out, logged back in. I've got all my questions, everything that I talked to you about. And if you're worried about losing it, again, you can always go right up here, download. It's going to download that entire chat into a text file for you. So if you want it to go away for a little bit and you just want to cruise around the website, again, it'll stay here no matter where you go. If it disappears for a second, it'll be right back. And it's back. So in terms of how the trial will work, I'm actually going to be giving a week trial for all of you rather than a 3-day. And I will send you a link to everyone who registered for the webinar. Following this webinar, you'll receive a link to a page that you'll be able to access from the SunSpec website that will give you access to the tool, which will expire then after a week. So unlike the member version, when you are using, if you're on a trial version of the tool, you will only be able to use it on that particular site. Whereas for members, it's no matter where you are on the site, you'll be able to access the tool here. Did anyone have any other questions that they wanted to ask? Anything they wanted to ask the tool? I'm a little surprised. Haven't seen some more technical questions here, but again, you've got plenty of time to ask it after the webinar is over as well. Or any comments, concerns, anything in general? Now, again, I will say this is Ray. If you registered for the webinar, I have all your emails. So everybody who registered will be getting a link to that AI tool. If for some reason, when I send it out, you do not get it, please follow up with me, sam@sunspec.org, if you have any sort of questions. All right, Kudra, we have a question here. Is there a secure way to use SunSpec Modbus? And again, you can expand the chat using this here. So, yes, there is a way to use SunSpec. Excuse me. Yes, there is a secure way to use SunSpec Modbus. Let's scroll back up. I can find it here. Pardon my scrolling ineptitude at the moment. All right. It is called Secure SunSpec Modbus TCP. This approach is fully specified in the Secure SunSpec Modbus specification, which we went over a little bit earlier. So it's going to get right back into how Secure SunSpec Modbus works. It's going to go into the transport layer security, mutual authentication, role-based access control. And again, you'll see it's telling you right where it's pulling it from. Section 5.4, page 15. Going to go into strong cipher suites, certificate and key management. We'll go into the deployment notes, and then again, where to find the specification. Good, I'm glad to hear that, Keith. Yeah, that was one of the main ideas that we had with this tool, is that we wanted to eliminate a lot of the noise. And while yes, SunSpec has tons of publicly available information, and you can ask AI tools all sorts of different things about SunSpec and get some accurate information, it doesn't have access to all of our specifications, right? So, you know, a lot of these specifications are gated. And so you need to go in, put in your information, and then download that specification. So an AI tool isn't going to be able to scrape from those documents. And when you're a member and you have access to this tool, it's pulling from all of the documents on the back end. So that sort of barrier to access to the specifications has been removed. So that's why another AI tool won't really have that, and will never be able to have that level of granularity as ours, because it's just not pulling from the source material in the same way. And again, we've also put up, like I've said, some very custom parameters to really ensure that this answers accurately and doesn't feel compelled to answer something that it doesn't know. And that was one of the things that we did with testing in the beginning, was we asked it things that it wouldn't know, and it said, I'm sorry, I don't have enough information to answer that, which is what I would prefer to have it do, and then have you reach out to one of us, again, then give you misinformation, and perhaps you go and do something that's incorrect, and then you've got even more problems following suit. So, you know, this is something we really wanted to be mindful of, especially just because there are so many different AI tools. and it doesn't always behoove you to take them as 100% gospel. So hope that answered your question. Does anyone else have any questions or comments or any other things that they wanted to ask the tool here? All right. Well, I'll give you all about 15 minutes back then. Again, thank you for joining, and I'll hang out for a few more minutes if any of you have any additional questions or anything that you'd like to ask me. Again, this is a member benefit, so I highly encourage you, if you're not a member of the SunSpec Alliance, to join. I mean, this is just one of many member benefits that you get. It's, you know, becoming a SunSpec member is, you know, over $50,000 in value for a $5,000 a year membership. You get access to a wealth of resources, our entire SunSpec Academy, which was developed in accordance with the UC California system, the SunSpec AI tool, which again is only available to members. You are able to participate in our work groups, which help develop the specifications and update the specifications that are informing this AI tool, so you get to be a part of standards development. So I'd really encourage you, you know, if you're not a member, to look at the wealth of different resources that you get just beyond this AI tool when you become a member of SunSpec. So with that, I'll close, and if anyone else has any additional questions, feel free to reach out to me at sam@sunspec.org, and again, I'll hang out for a couple minutes here if anyone else wants to follow up. But I thank you very much for joining. This is recorded. We'll be up on YouTube and the website if you'd like to follow up. And as I said, you will all be getting access to the tool, so look for that email later today or early tomorrow, and that'll be a week-long access to use the tool for as long as you'd like. So if you're not a member and you do have access, feel free to ask it as many questions as you want.